Welcome to the Factors Affecting Performance lesson as part of the Flipped Learning in Physical Education series by Mr. Tait. In sport, there are many factors that can affect the performance either positively or negatively. Invariably, there's a winner and a loser, and our job is to look behind those performances and try to work out which factors have influenced the performance of the individual or the team participating. The first lifestyle factor we're going to look at is smoking. And smoking can really reduce our lung capacity and our ability to carry oxygen around our body. And that's very, very important for sportsmen and women because we need to make sure we get the oxygen to the working muscles in order for us to be effective. Secondly, if we drink too much alcohol, especially if we are in elite sport and we are training throughout the week, significant amounts of alcohol can lead to loss of fluids throughout the body, and then that can lead to dehydration. And if we're dehydrated even by 10%, that can have a massive impact on our performance. Thirdly, making sure we are taking on board a balanced and healthy diet. We need to make sure we're eating the right foods, drinking the correct amounts of water, to make sure we have the right energy so that we can supply our body with the energy that it needs to be effective in our sport. And lastly, making sure we get regular rest and sleep. We've talked about before about the next training session starts the minute the last one finishes, and actually that rest period is very, very important to let our body repair and for us to actually take on those necessary fluids and eat well again to make sure we build the energy up and we're not fatigued going into the next session, because that could actually lead to injuries and reduced performance levels. Although injuries are an obvious cause for a drop in performance level, it's very important to understand when a player is playing through an injury, or what we call carrying an injury. And what that means is that throughout a game, a player may pick up an injury and may decide to play through for the team. But within that time, their performance level may be dropping because they're not at 100% fitness. And it's important to understand when we then substitute that player, if we can in a team game, to get someone fresh on the field. It's also important because carrying an injury may make that injury far worse in the long term. And actually it may lead to more weeks or more games on the sideline recovering from an injury that wasn't that bad initially, but because you've played through it, it's now been made a lot worse and the recovery time is a lot longer. Age has many different positive and negative effects on performance. Firstly, with flexibility, the younger you are, the more flexible you are. And as you start getting towards the end of your sporting career, you find that your muscles and your range of movement are less flexible. On the opposite side of that, strength is developed more as we get older, and certainly into your 20s, you're not as strong, you're not as fully developed until you're into your mid and late 20s. So actually, as a sports person, or as an athlete, or a games player, you become stronger the older you get. There's also, as you get older and as age develops, it actually takes longer to recover from illnesses and injuries. So as a footballer potentially, if you pick up an injury when you're 17 or 18, you'll hopefully be able to shake that off and get back onto the pitch quicker than when you are towards the end of your career, maybe 30, 35, it takes a lot longer. And lastly, experience. Experience only comes from being there and having done it. So naturally, experience comes with age, and the older you get, the more experienced you get. There are many differences in the male and female body structure, and we need to understand this before we understand why males generally set higher performance levels than females. Firstly, females are generally smaller than males, and they also have a broader pelvis, and that's for childbirth reasons. They also find that females have a smaller heart and lungs. Now this has a significant impact on the amount of oxygen that those females can carry. Therefore, usually males have a higher stamina rate due to that. Females have a higher body fat percentage, and because of that, they then have less muscle mass. And again, that would then suggest that males can develop to be stronger athletes than females. However, females, because of the less muscle mass, they can then be a lot more flexible, and that's certainly where females come into their own, because in gymnastic events where we need to be very flexible, females can certainly outperform the males. Environmental and climate factors can have a significant positive or negative impact on your performance. Extreme cold, extreme heat, wind, rain, ice, snow, things like that, they can all have both negative and positive impacts depending on what sport you are or athletic event you are doing at that time. For instance, if we're doing the 1500 metres and it's very, very hot, then that's going to have a negative impact on your performance because it is going to dehydrate you very, very quickly. Whereas if it was quite cool and it was raining and the rain contains oxygen in the air, it's easier then to be able to run for long periods of time, and it's a lot more comfortable. What's also worth noting is that when we compete and we play against different teams or we compete against different individuals from different areas of the country or different areas of the world, a negative environmental factor might actually turn out to be a positive factor. And the reason that is because if you are used to playing in very cold conditions and you are playing a team or competing against somebody from a lot of a hotter or warmer climate, they're not going to be used to your climate and your environmental factor. So that's going to create a home field advantage for you, and you're going to turn that negative environmental factor into a positive one. And likewise, when you flip that on the head, if you go to somewhere very, very hot and you're not used to it and you dehydrate very quickly, then the other team is going to have a significant advantage. And we've seen that a lot, certainly in World Cup competitions, in rugby, in football, in the Olympics, where sports have taken place in different continents, and the home field advantage, has been huge for the country that is actually hosting those games because they're used to that environment. The pressure in certain sports at the elite level can be absolutely huge, and that pressure can be generated from playing in front of large crowds, playing in different stages of a tournament or a competition such as a semi-final or a final, playing in front of TV cameras, and then those factors can be very, very significant on the performance of the individuals. Firstly, it can have a positive impact because it can motivate people to want to do really well. If you're in a final or if you're in front of TV cameras, you're in front of a large crowd, you may well be motivated to play your best. On the flip side of that, it can go to the reverse, and it can actually have a negative impact because it can make you very nervous, it can make you feel sick, and your muscles can feel tight and you can start shaking. But it can also affect your decision making as well. If you're very, very nervous and you're under a lot of pressure and you're worried about losing, it can then have a real negative impact on your decision making because you can then be very worried about making those split-second decisions, and you can then start to take a little bit longer over those decisions, and you can sometimes make some of those wrong decisions because the pressure of losing is so great that you're very, very worried, and you start to make wrong decisions and decisions that you wouldn't normally make under normal circumstances. So this pressure is very it's very interesting because when we look at it, it's down to the individual to themselves. One person can take it as a positive, one person can take it as a negative, and it all comes down to the individual and the situation they're in at that time.